If you've taken the time to get into permaculture design or regenerative landscape design, then you know how complex and overwhelming things can be. There's earthworks, there's microclimates, there's animal integration, there's composting, there's gardening, there's perennial systems, there's soil, and the list quite honestly just goes on and on and on and on. And one of the most important parts of that whole systems thinking is water. And that is one of the hardest ones to wrap your head around too, especially when we're thinking about setting up a property to be resilient as a system. And so we could talk about swales and terraces and ponds all day, but if we don't have a framework to actually see how those things connect, because it's the connection of those things that matter the most in making a property more resilient, then it's hard to wrap your head around. So when I'm going around and we're planning out our own property, I want to go to inspiration from, or I want to take inspiration from people who have done an amazing job at that. So what I want to do today in this video is go over some inspiration. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over Zaytuna Farm in Australia to take a look at Geoff Lawton's water systems. But to do that, we're going to have to go into the office. So let's go that way. Now, before we get into the amazing swales and pond system that Geoff has set up at Zaytuna, I'm just going to briefly touch on why these water harvesting structures are actually so important to resilience and more. So first thing I want to do is take a look at the wet side of the coin, so to say. So in February of 2022, Zaytuna Farm received record amounts of rainfall. It was 775 millimeters in a 24-hour period. And in one of those hours, they received 180 mils, which is actually exuberant amount of water. Now, Zaytuna Farm is situated about 30 kilometers upstream from Lismore, which had, I believe it was 14 meters of river rows. Like that's going to be upwards of 45 feet. About 1,000 homes had to be completely demolished. And that was the record flood in Lismore by 2 meters. So that's about 6 feet. And so as you can imagine, even the areas around Zaytuna Farm that didn't have these water harvesting structures set up, the sheer amount of soil erosion that would have happened. Now, as it turns out, not only did Zaytuna Farm bank that water for future use, but they also captured about 2 meters of topsoil, which is insane because otherwise that topsoil would have ended up in the river, which would have been stuck behind a dam, or it would have just gone straight out to the ocean to be a detriment to marine habitat. So they captured that nutrient on the farm itself, which is absolutely amazing. And so you're getting the best of both worlds in instances of resilience for floods and fires, because in an instance where there's droughts, like end of 2019, I think those fires probably started in November, the bushfires, and went well into 2020. A hydrated landscape just doesn't really burn. So you're getting resilience from floods, you're capturing topsoil, and then you're becoming more resilient to fire, all while irrigating and hydrating the landscape. Very cool. All right, so with that being said, let's go on a little tour of Zaytuna Farm. So this isn't going to be just a regular old tour. I invite you to join along in this field trip. To do so, just go to app.landscope.earth. There'll be a link in the section just below this video with some more instructions on how to follow along. But what you're going to want to do is go to app.landscope.earth, go to demo projects, and then zoom into Zaytuna right there. And you'll see all of these different layers. If you do want to download this mapping package as a Google Earth Pro thing, then all you have to do is click there. You're just going to have to make an account to do so. Otherwise, this will all be available to you. And there's obviously a lot of layers in here. And what we want to do is, I'm just going to focus on the ones that are most relevant to this particular case, but I encourage you to go check out what these other ones are as well. Okay, so this first one is a colored hillshade, And the first thing that you're going to see is, oh wow, that doesn't look like the typical conventional landscape right here. There are some features on this landscape that would suggest that perhaps there was some intentional scaping, so to say. And actually, you know what, for the sake of comparison, what we'll do is we'll go to another demo project. Let's go to this one in New Zealand, just over the Pacific, and look at that same layer, the colored hillshade. And note the absence of sculpted features. So you can see a road pretty clearly in here. Otherwise, you can see some very prominent drainage features, these ridges up here, and a really cool overview of this landscape. And one of the best parts about having this in LiDAR, obviously, is the fact that this is a heavily forested area, yet with the LiDAR we can penetrate through that canopy and see what the shape of the land is doing underneath there, which is really cool. But no prominent scaping of the land to suggest that there was a design for holding water back on the landscape. There are some minor features here which we can take a look at right here. So we're going to go to the topographic wetness index down here and make the opacity full there. Now when we zoom into this area, what this darker area actually represents is an area on the landscape where water has a natural tendency to want to pool there. Hence the topographic wetness index name for this layer. So it's taking into consideration, is there water flowing to that area? And then is the slope essentially a basin for water to actually accumulate in? So if we change the opacity here, there's actually a dugout down below, so that makes perfect sense as to why that algorithm would say, hey, yeah, water definitely wants to be pooling there, and I would bet money that this is also blue right in there. Yeah. There you go. Okay, so obviously when we go to Zaytuna Farm again, that layer in particular is going to look very different because it has been sculpted in a way to actually hold water back on that landscape. And so we'll put on the topographic wetness index here. And right away, my goodness, what a difference is present. I'm also going to put on contours here because that's going to help situate all of these in elevation, so to say. I'm going to change the weight of the contours down to 1 pixel here. Maybe even change the opacity. I'll just have to reload. Okay, there we go. So if you're not familiar with what a contour is essentially just a line of equal elevation on the landscape. So in this case, this line, we have the legend over here, keep that in mind, is 2 meters height difference from this line right here, and again to that one right in there. So that's about 6 feet in height difference going down towards here. I'm just going to chuck on the colored hillshade here, just to, again, to let you see that elevation context there. So in general, water is flowing from the west to the east, in this case, down towards the river. Hey everyone, real quick. So if you are a designer or a property owner or an environmental consultant and you're interested in getting some of these mapping packages, which do, by the way, go beyond what is discussed in this video. There's slope angles, there's the aspect, there's the contours at 4 different intervals, there's elevation, hillshades, the drainage network, topographic wetness index, flow accumulation, landform classification. So if you're into mapping packages like that, that are working in Google Earth Pro and exportable to your CAD formats and GIS workflows, then we've made it really easy to get a mapping package. All you have to do is go to create a project on the left-hand menu. And there's 3 ways to get a mapping package. 1, you draw the area that you want mapped. 2, you upload a KML of the area. Maybe you already have it on your computer. Or 3, you have your own digital elevation model and you want to have that processed with a LandScope analysis. So the next page after you do that is going to be a payment page. There's two options. First is just you're buying one map. That's it. It's by area. That's how the pricing works. Now, the second option is a credited option. So if you're a consultant or a designer or a property vetter and you want to be having these mapping packages, a lot of them, to support your workflows, then we have insane wholesale bulk discounts. So if that's of interest to you and you want to get on the credit system, then book a call down below. And if not, just enjoy this video. Have fun. See ya. And let's take a look at this particular system right here. We have a pond right here. And we can see that the topographic wetness index is highlighting some stuff right here, but it's on the contour. So this is an actual swale where water is essentially being buffered. It's being stopped from going further down the hill, and it's being stopped on this spot and allowed to percolate into the ground. So we have a pond over here and another one right here. And where you can see a more prominent blue feature leaving the swale is a spillway. And so a spillway is really important to have in any swale system design because that allows you to effectively play pinball really effectively. And then if you didn't have a spillway and then it went to the top, that's a recipe for erosion at one particular spot because all that water is going to eventually leave just right outside of that one point. So always consider your spillways. And right here, you can see how Geoff had designed this to effectively play pinball with these other swales. So this one goes even further. You can see the topographic wetness index is dark right there, going towards this other one. And so this spillway comes up, and that water is now going towards this pond right in here. And if we go up to here, then this spillway is coming down here, which I believe is another swale. And when that fills up, it is being funneled down into this pond. And when that fills up, it's going down to here, to this pond. And then we can consider this swale system over here, where we have those lines on the contour, right? So that's an easy way to identify this, is a blue line on that contour. So that's going down right there. When that spills over, it comes to here. And then when that fills up, spills to here. And then when that fills up, there's likely a pond. It may not be, yeah, it looks like a basin of sorts there. And then when that fills up, comes down more so into this fish-shaped pond right here. And then when that fills, goes to the river. So it's a system like this which really allows one to capture 2 meters of topsoil during a very intense precipitation event, but also build resilience in the drought and fire season because that landscape is so hydrated itself. Okay, so what I would encourage you to do is with the Zaytuna Farm, explore these layers in here. There's a lot to explore. We have elevation, so you can see the high bits, the low bits, everywhere in between, where the high spots are, where the low spots are, those points. Some statistics on that elevation right here. So it looks like this has gentle rolling hills or some slight variation. Of course, we've gone over the hillshades. What we didn't go over is the aspect, so which way the slopes are actually facing, which is indicative of the microclimate that you would typically find there, with northwest facing slopes, in this case because it's the southern hemisphere, being the warmest. And then for me, I mean, it really goes to show that this is what other people are working with. And so, you know, the land doesn't come with a manual. It's kind of like just getting dealt a hand of cards, and you have to play those appropriately. And these are, so to say, an indication of what it is that you're actually working with. So in this case, like, we have a fair bit of south-facing slopes here. This is going to be the colder parts of that property. And so this is by no means like a sun-soaked area that is absolutely just basking in sun, because in this case it's those northeast, northwest facing slopes here. And so we can have a little breakdown here. So by and large, most of it's facing south, southeast, and east, and northeast. So predominantly east-facing property here. And then I think we're getting into 20% of this has a 12-degree slope on there, which is pretty high, to be honest. And so it's these ones that are like fairly workable. And so just to give you an indication, these are the conditions under which this was created. And so taking stock of what it is that you have and then applying those regenerative principles to that. So you have the slope and some slope statistics on there. Let's go there to give you an idea of what you can and can't do on that landscape, or what has some risk and what has a little bit less risk, so to say, namely those flatter areas. But even just like situationally, what was the slope angles that Geoff was using? Explore these and match the different layers together and just like see how it goes. And then on top of that, there are other demo projects that you can explore, some in France, New Zealand that we went over, Salt Spring Island in Canada. Jay-Z and Beyonce just bought a property in the UK, 7 million pounds, but it floods all the time. If they had one of these mapping packages, maybe they wouldn't have done that. Or if you want to create a project of your own, it's really easy to do so. Go create a project, enter your project name. Let's go to, I don't know, San Francisco Ranch. Should we buy one? And there's 3 ways to do it. You know, draw a boundary, upload a boundary file, or upload your own digital elevation model. Just for the sake of this, let's go draw our boundary. We'll enter an address, and let's go to San Francisco. Okay, we're not looking for a ranch in the middle there, so let's go perhaps a little bit more north. See, this is already looking way different than Geoff Lawton's farm. So this is just a random area that I'm choosing to map out. Let's go down to here. Okay, finish drawing. Now, pricing there is, there's a couple of ways to do it. Credits or credit card. So if you are a consultant, designer, or a property vetter, then the credits are basically a wholesale pricing for mapping packages. So it's a lot easier to just go get one. And it's really, really fast. And so already it's processing the LiDAR in this particular area, and it's creating all of the same layers that we had explored on Geoff's farm there. And so I can't remember how many acres this was, but we already have some of the layers, so we get a good lay of the land with the elevation, the statistics of that area. So we have some, same as Geoff, some gentle rolling hills and slight variation. Let's check the hillshade on that. Oh, it looks like they have something to hold. Yeah, that's obviously a big dugout. But some gnarly erosion cuts coming up here, so happy that is at least forested now. That's great to see. And another big dam up in here. So it could be some work on these slopes for swaling and terracing. Let's check the aspect. Maybe we want to put some solar panels up. Let's see, or an orchard. Let's see what's south facing. There we go. Okay. Neat. So if we go to the report here, let's take a look at, yeah, predominantly we're dealing with some south facing slopes here, and almost it's quite similar to Geoff's with the slope angles there. That's interesting. And then go back down to all those same features, hydrology features. Let's go check the topographic wetness index and see what's going on there. You'll notice that this is further out than the initial area that we had delineated, because we want to know where water is coming into the property and where it's coming out. And so all that show, very quick, same layers, and you can literally just plug these into your own workflows. You can export them as TIFFs. You can download it right here as a Google Earth Pro package, or if you want, let's get the contours up there, and similar to the demonstration ones, you can download as various different formats for your own workflows. So I hope that you found this insightful and fun and cool, and you got to hang out on Geoff's property to see how the swales and the ponds all coexist together as a system to make an area more resilient to both floods and fires. So that said, have fun, stay safe, and we'll see you in the future.